Right now, somewhere in your life, you are following someone, a boss, a coach, a person in a group chat whose opinion somehow carries more weight than everyone else's. You didn't vote for them in any formal sense. No election happened, and yet, without really deciding to, you find yourself deferring to them anyway. That instinct feels modern. It isn't. It's older than kingdoms, older than writing. It's older than almost anything you'd call civilization. You tend to picture ancient leadership as brute force. The strongest man with the biggest club, ruling through fear. That image is comforting because it's simple. It's also mostly wrong. For the vast majority of human history, your ancestors lived in small hunter-gatherer bands. No kings, no courts, no armies to enforce anyone's will. And yet, these groups still needed direction. Someone had to decide when to move camp. Someone had to settle a dispute over meat. Someone had to organize a hunt that could feed or starve an entire group. So how did leadership actually work when no one held a crown and no one held a weapon strong enough to force obedience on dozens of other armed adults? Anthropologist Christopher Boehm spent decades studying small-scale societies, and his research revealed something that upends the strongest man wins story completely. Boehm found that many hunter-gatherer groups actively suppressed anyone who tried to dominate the group through force or intimidation. If a man became too bossy, too aggressive, too eager to control others, the group didn't simply obey him out of fear. They mocked him. They ignored him. In extreme cases, they exiled him, or worse. Boehm called this pattern reverse dominance hierarchy. Instead of one person dominating everyone else, the entire group worked together to dominate anyone who tried to dominate them. Which raises an obvious question. If ancient humans were actively hostile to bullies and tyrants, how did anyone ever end up leading anything? The answer lies in a distinction that evolutionary psychologists now describe using two very different words: dominance and prestige. Dominance is leadership through fear, intimidation, physical threat. It's the version of leadership your instincts might picture first, and it does show up throughout history and even in other primate species. But dominance is fragile. It requires constant enforcement. The moment a dominant leader shows weakness, someone else challenges them, and the whole structure can collapse overnight. Prestige works completely differently. Prestige is leadership through demonstrated skill and generosity. The best hunter, the most skilled healer, the person whose judgment consistently proved correct when it mattered most. People didn't follow prestige-based leaders because they feared punishment. They followed because following seemed genuinely useful. Researcher Joseph Henrich, who has studied cultural evolution extensively, argues that prestige-based leadership gave early humans a massive advantage. Instead of everyone learning survival skills purely through personal trial and error, a group could simply copy whoever seemed to know what they were doing. Watch the best tracker, imitate the best toolmaker, learn from the person whose decisions kept the group alive winter after winter. This wasn't just convenient. It was a survival strategy baked directly into your ancestors' social instincts. Here's where it gets interesting. Evolutionary psychologist Mark van Vugt has proposed that humans evolved highly specific, almost automatic instincts for recognizing leadership potential. Instincts that still fire inside your brain today, even in situations wildly different from anything your ancestors ever experienced. Van Vugt's research suggests you unconsciously scan for particular traits when sizing up a potential leader: competence, confidence, the willingness to act decisively when the group is uncertain, and crucially, generosity, a track record of sharing resources rather than hoarding them for personal gain. Ancient leaders who hoarded meat after a successful hunt didn't stay leaders for long. Leaders who distributed the kill fairly, who made sure children and elders ate before anyone else took a second portion, earned something far more durable than obedience. They earned trust. Trust in a small group with no formal law was the entire system. If your ancestors trusted their leader's judgment, they followed it. If that trust broke, even the most competent hunter in the group could find himself alone by morning, because in a world without police or contracts, a group's willingness to cooperate was the only enforcement mechanism that existed. This explains something strange about leadership that persists into the modern world. You've probably met someone with obvious talent who somehow never earns real influence because people sense, correctly or not, that they're serving themselves rather than the group. And you've likely met someone with far less obvious skill who nonetheless becomes the person everyone quietly turns to because something about how they treat others signals safety, fairness, and competence all at once. That instinct isn't shallow. It's ancient risk assessment. assessment, running exactly as designed. Van Vogt's research goes further, suggesting that ancient leadership was often situational rather than permanent. The best hunter might lead during a hunt. The most skilled mediator might lead during a conflict. The most experienced elder might lead during a crisis requiring memory of past droughts or migrations. Leadership shifted based on what the moment actually required, rather than resting permanently with one dominant figure. This flexible, rotating structure meant early human groups rarely handed unchecked power to any single person for very long. Compare that to how quickly modern institutions can calcify around one leader, long after that person's specific competence has become irrelevant to the challenges the group now faces. There's a deeper twist hiding underneath all of this. The instincts that once helped a small band of 30 people select a fair, competent hunting leader are the exact same instincts you use today when deciding whether to trust a manager, a politician, or an online influencer with millions of followers. Your brain hasn't caught up to the scale of modern leadership. It's still running Stone Age software, scanning for competence and generosity signals in a world where charisma can be manufactured, where generosity can be performed for cameras rather than genuinely practiced, and where the consequences of choosing a self-serving leader ripple out to millions of people you will never personally meet instead of the 30 or 40 people who once shared a fire with your ancestors. That mismatch matters. In a small ancient band, if a leader turned out to be selfish or incompetent, the damage was visible almost immediately, and the group could remove that leader with nothing more than collective disapproval. In the modern world, the feedback loop is slower, the audience is larger, and the tools for faking prestige, curated images, rehearsed speeches, strategic generosity have grown far more sophisticated than anything your ancestors ever had to detect. Which means the real skill worth developing isn't just choosing leaders who feel confident or charismatic. It's learning to spot the difference between someone who has earned trust through consistent action and someone who has simply learned how to look like they deserve it. Your ancestors solved this problem imperfectly, but they solved it socially, together, in real time, with immediate consequences for getting it wrong. You inherited their instincts. You didn't inherit their village-sized feedback loop. So the next time you find yourself deferring to someone in a workplace, a community, or a screen full of strangers, pause for a moment and ask what your ancient brain is actually responding to. Is it genuine competence and generosity, the same signals that once told a small group of humans who to trust with their survival? Or is it a modern performance of those signals, dressed up convincingly enough to fool an instinct that was never designed for an audience this large? Right now, somewhere in your life, you are following someone. The question your ancestors always knew to ask, and the one worth asking again today, is simply this: have they actually earned it? If this kind of deep dive into human nature is something you enjoy, make sure to like this video and subscribe so you never miss the next one. Drop a comment below with what surprised you most, and I'll see you in the next video.